During the remodel of my house, the contractor showed up pale and trembling. He whispered to me, "Listen carefully. Grab your things and leave immediately. Don't say anything to the children." I looked at the wall he had just torn down, horrified. I took my things and left. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story to the end and comment what city you're watching me from. That way I can see how far my story has reached." My name is Ophelia, and I am 63 years old. For 35 years, I lived in the same house, in the same quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Portland, with the same man. Bernard died 6 months ago of a massive heart attack while mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning. There was no goodbye. There were no last words. Just the sound of the lawnmower that kept running on its own until the neighbor realized something was wrong. I spent the first 4 months in a kind of fog. My daughters, Claire and Diane, would come on the weekends. They organized things, moved papers, talked about the future as if I weren't in the room. Claire is 35 and works in human resources. Diane is 32 and is a sales manager. They both inherited Bernard's firm jaw and that way of looking at me as if I were a problem that needed to be solved. It was Claire who suggested the remodel. "Mum, this house is stuck in 1985, she said, touching the floral wallpaper in the hallway with 2 fingers, as if it were contaminated. "If you're going to sell, you need to update it. The basement is a disaster. No one is going to pay a good price for this." I didn't want to remodel. I wasn't even sure I wanted to sell. But Diane explained to me, with that exaggerated patience people use when talking to small children, that keeping such a large house no longer made sense for me. "Dad is gone, Mum. It's too much space. Too much maintenance." I hired Marcus through a neighborhood recommendation. He was a man in his late 40s, quiet, efficient. He wore flannel shirts even in the summer and always arrived at exactly 7 in the morning. I liked him because he didn't try to fill the silence with unnecessary conversation. The remodel began on a Tuesday in October. Marcus and his small team started with the basement, as Claire had insisted. "That's where the real problem is, Mum. Dampness, mold, old walls. It all has to go." For the first 2 weeks, I avoided going down there. The noise was constant. Hammers, saws, male voices giving instructions. I would stay in the kitchen drinking coffee, looking out the window, wondering how I got here, to this life where my own daughters decided my future without really consulting me. It was a Thursday morning when everything changed. Marcus came up the basement stairs faster than usual. I heard his heavy boots pounding on the wooden steps. When he entered the kitchen, his face was pale. Not white, but grey, like ash. "Mrs. Brennan," he said, and his voice sounded strange, tense. "I need you to come downstairs for a moment." I got up slowly, feeling my knees protest. 63 years weighs differently when you've spent decades not moving much beyond the kitchen and the grocery store. The basement smelled of dust and damp wood. The light from the work lamps cast harsh shadows against the concrete walls. Marcus had torn down the back wall, the one that had always been covered with metal shelves full of old boxes I never checked. Behind that wall, there was a space. Not large, maybe 5 feet deep, but enough. And it was filled with boxes. "We found them an hour ago," Marcus said, and I noticed he was avoiding looking at me directly. At first I thought it was just extra storage, old stuff. But then I opened one. He walked over to a cardboard box he had placed apart from the others. The lid was open. Inside were letters, piles and piles of letters, still in their envelopes, many unopened. I knelt slowly, feeling my bones creak. I took the first envelope. It was addressed to me. The handwriting was my mother's. The postmark date read March of 1993. My mother died in 1997. I never received this letter. My hands were shaking when I opened it. The paper was yellowed, but the ink was still legible. Dear Ophelia, I've tried to call you, but Bernard says you're busy. I understand that life with two little girls must be exhausting. I just wanted you to know that Dad and I are fine. Your sister Patricia asks about you constantly. She says you don't return her calls. Honey, I know we had our differences, but you are my daughter. I miss you. Please, call me when you can. I closed my eyes. My mother had died thinking I had rejected her, that I had chosen silence. There's more, Marcus said softly. Many more, from different people. Years and years of correspondence. I opened another box. Wedding invitations, birth announcements, Christmas cards, letters from my sister Patricia, correspondence from friends from high school. There were even official notifications, invitations to family reunions, funeral notices, all addressed to me. None of it had ever reached my hands. Mrs. Brennan, Marcus's voice pulled me from my stupor. When I looked at him, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Fear. There's something else you need to know. He led me to the corner of the hidden space. There, on the concrete wall, were marks, lines made with a permanent marker. Dates, numbers. Marcus pointed to one. O, called, July 19th, 1995. Do not answer. Say she's at the doctor. Another. Patricia insists. Block number if necessary. Another one. Family reunion invitation. Reply that O can't attend. Health problems. There were dozens. A meticulous record of every attempt at contact that Bernard had intercepted for decades. I felt the floor move beneath me. Marcus held my arm. Mrs. Brennan, listen carefully. His voice was low, urgent. Get your things and get out of this house immediately. Don't tell your daughters anything yet. Just go. What? Why? Because if your husband did this for 30 years without you noticing, Marcus looked me directly in the eyes, then he wasn't the only one who knew. My heart stopped. The boxes are organized by year, Marcus continued. They're labeled, catalogued. Someone was coming down here regularly. Someone was maintaining this. And Mrs. Brennan, some of these boxes have dates from after your daughters were old enough to come down to the basement by themselves. The world tilted. I leaned against the cold wall. Go to a hotel, Marcus said. Take these boxes with you. Read them. Understand what really happened. And then decide what to do. My daughters are coming tomorrow, I whispered. Exactly, Marcus replied. That's why you have to leave today. The hotel room was small and smelled of industrial detergent and anonymity. Exactly what I needed. I paid in cash for 3 nights at a Holiday Inn on the other side of town, using money I had saved in an envelope inside my purse. Money Bernard never knew I had because I'd saved it from grocery shopping over the years. $5 here, 10 there. I had brought 6 boxes. Marcus helped me load them into my car, my old Toyota Camry, which Bernard always said we would replace one day, but we never did. Marcus didn't say anything else. He just squeezed my shoulder briefly before I left. Take your time, was the only thing he added. Now the boxes were stacked next to the bed. I had mentally numbered them 1 through 6. I decided to start with the one that looked oldest, dated from 1988 to 1992. Inside were letters from my mother, dozens of them. The first was from June 1988, just 3 years after Bernard and I got married. My mother wrote about mundane things, the garden, the new dog Dad had brought home, how Patricia had gotten a promotion at her job. But there was one line that cut through me like a knife. "I miss our phone calls, honey. Bernard says you're very busy adjusting to married life, but surely you have 5 minutes for your mother." I remembered that period. I remembered feeling like my family had grown distant after the wedding. Bernard told me it was normal, that my priority now was our new family, that my mother was being possessive. I believed him. The next letter was from September of the same year. The tone was different, more worried. "Ophelia, I've called 6 times this week. Bernard always answers and says you're sleeping, or in the shower, or that you went out. Honey, are you okay? Did I do something wrong?" No, she hadn't done anything wrong, but I never got those calls. I never knew she had called 6 times. I kept reading, letter after letter, year after year, my mother begging for contact. At first, gentle requests, then more urgent questions. Finally, a quiet desperation that broke me inside. In a letter from 1990, my mother wrote about her cancer diagnosis. Breast cancer, stage 2. She needed surgery. She wanted me to be there. I never knew she had cancer. I was never there. I had to stop. I closed the letter and stared at the beige hotel wall, feeling something inside me fracture in a way I knew would never fully repair. My mother had been sick, and I didn't even know, because Bernard never told me. I took a deep breath and opened the next box. This one contained letters from Patricia, my younger sister. Patricia and I had been inseparable as children. She was 3 years younger than me. Funny, spontaneous, everything I wasn't. After my wedding, we just stopped talking. I thought she was upset with me about something, that she blamed me for choosing Bernard over the family. The first letter from Patricia was from 1989. "Ophelia, I don't understand what happened. Mum says Bernard told her you don't want to talk to me. Is that true? What did I do? Please, call me. I just want to know you're okay." There were more, many more. Patricia had tried to contact me for years. She had sent me an invitation to her best friend's wedding, where I was the original maid of honor. She had written to me when her first child, my nephew Matthew, was born in 1993. There were pictures inside the envelope. A small baby with our family's light-colored eyes. I didn't know I had a nephew. By 1995, Patricia's tone had changed. She was no longer begging. Now she sounded tired. "Ophelia, I don't know if you're still getting my letters, or if you've just decided you don't want a family anymore. Mum is worse. The cancer is back. The doctors aren't optimistic. I know it's been a long time, but she loves you. It would be good if you called her before it's too late. My mother died in January of 1997. I went to the funeral. I remember that day with painful clarity. Bernard drove me. I was dazed, confused as to why my own family looked at me with such coldness. Patricia didn't even speak to me. I thought she was angry because I hadn't been there during Mom's illness. Now I understood why. She thought I had chosen not to be there, that I had received all her letters, all her pleas, and simply hadn't cared enough to respond. I opened the third box. This one had more recent dates, from 2000 to 2005. There were invitations to birthdays, graduation, family reunions, an invitation to Patricia's wedding in 2002, another to the baptism of her second child in 2004. Entire family events that happened without me, because I never knew I was invited. I also found letters from high school friends. Melissa, with whom I had been inseparable. In a letter from 2001, Melissa wrote about her divorce, about how she needed her best friend, about how she didn't understand why I had disappeared from her life. I remembered Melissa. After I got married, we just stopped seeing each other. Bernard said she was a bad influence, that she talked too much, that she distracted me from my responsibilities at home. Eventually, I stopped trying to see her. But Melissa hadn't stopped trying to contact me. The letters proved it. She had tried for years, until finally, in a last letter from 2007, she wrote, "Ophelia, I give up. I don't know what I did to lose you as a friend, but it's clear that continuing to try only hurts me. I hope you're happy." I cried then, for the first time since Bernard died. I truly cried. Not for his death, but for my life. For all the people who loved me and whom I had unknowingly abandoned. The fourth box contained more formal documents, legal notices about my father's death in 2010. I didn't know he had died. Bernard told me at the time that Dad had decided not to have a funeral, that he wanted something private with just Patricia. A lie. Here was the invitation to the memorial service, with my name on it. There were also notifications about the sale of the family home in 2012. As the only other heir besides Patricia, I had a right to be notified. The documents were there, with spaces for my signature that I never saw. Patricia had ended up handling everything alone, because I, apparently, never responded to the lawyer's letters. In the fifth box, I found something that chilled my blood. They were Christmas and birthday cards from the most recent years, from 2015 to 2019, right before the pandemic. But these weren't from my family of origin. They were from Claire and Diane's teachers, thank you cards for gifts I had apparently sent. But I never sent those gifts. Notes about school events that I, unfortunately, couldn't attend due to health problems. I had attended all of my daughter's school events. These letters weren't intercepted. They were forged. Someone had been sending correspondence in my name to people I knew, creating a version of me that didn't exist. A version that was generous but absent, involved but always at a distance. Bernard. And then I found the last box. Number 6. This one had no date label. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a notebook, spiral-bound, hardcover, the kind kids use in school. The handwriting was different, younger, messier. It was Claire's handwriting. The first entry was dated May 2008. Claire would have been 19 years old, studying at college. Dad showed me the basement today. He explained why he does what he does. At first, it scared me, but it makes sense. Mum is fragile. She always has been. Mum's family is toxic. He's just protecting her from them. It's better that she doesn't know. She's happier not knowing. I kept reading, feeling the world crumble. My daughters knew. They had known for years. And they chose their father's side. I spent 2 days in that hotel without answering calls. My phone rang constantly. Claire. Diane. Claire again. Text messages that piled up like evidence of something I still didn't fully comprehend. Mum, where are you? Marcus says you left. What happened? We need to talk about the remodel. We have a buyer waiting. This is ridiculous. Call us. I read every message but didn't respond. Instead, I kept reading Claire's notebook. There were scattered entries over 10 years. It wasn't a constant diary, more like occasional notes about conversations with Bernard, about decisions they made together regarding me. An entry from 2011 read, Dad intercepted another letter from Aunt Patricia. Says she's still inviting Mum to family things. I told him maybe we should tell Mum, but Dad explained that it would be cruel. Mum built a life without them. Why dredge up the past? He's right. It's better this way. Another from 2014. Diane and I talked about the basement. We agreed that when Dad is gone, we'll have to get rid of everything before Mum finds it. It would be devastating for her. Dad says we're good daughters for understanding. Good daughters. On the third day, I finally responded. I sent a short message. I'm fine. See you at the house tomorrow at 10 in the morning. I arrived at 9:45. Marcus was already there, working in the kitchen now, giving me space but staying close. He looked at me with that expression I now recognized as genuine concern. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked quietly. No, I answered honestly, but I need to. Claire arrived first, exactly at 10, always punctual, always in control. She carried her leather briefcase as if this were a business meeting. Diane arrived 5 minutes later, her hair perfectly styled and her gel nails gleaming. Mum, Claire hugged me briefly, the kind of hug that means nothing. You had us worried. Why did you leave like that? I led them to the basement without answering. The boxes were still there, now stacked against the back wall. Marcus had cleaned the hidden space, but left the marks on the wall exposed, those notes Bernard had made for decades. What is all this? Diane asked, looking at the boxes with a frown. Open them, I said. My voice sounded strange, flat. Claire walked over slowly and lifted the lid of a box. I saw her eyes move over the envelopes, saw her jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Mum, she began, but I held up a hand. Marcus found this behind the wall. 30 years of mail addressed to me that I never received. Letters from my mother, my sister, friends, invitations to funerals, weddings, births. My voice trembled, but I continued. Your father hid all of them, every single one. Diane opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Claire simply closed her eyes. And you knew, I added. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the sound of Marcus's tools upstairs seemed to stop. Mum, Claire finally spoke, and her tone was the one she used when trying to be reasonable, professional. It's more complicated than you think. Complicated? I repeated the word as if it were foreign in my mouth. What part exactly is complicated? The part where my mother died, thinking I had abandoned her? Or the part where I didn't know my father had died until years later? Dad was protecting you, Diane said quickly. She had crossed her arms, adopting a defensive posture. Your family was toxic, Mum. They always were. Dad just wanted you to have peace. My family was toxic? I let out a laugh that sounded broken even to my own ears. Diane, my mother wrote begging for forgiveness for arguments I don't even remember. My sister begged me to meet my nephews. Does that sound toxic to you? You don't understand the full context, Claire intervened, using that condescending tone I now recognized she had been using with me for years. Dad told us things about how your family treated you before you got married, how they made you feel bad about yourself. He just wanted to protect you from that. Then why didn't he let me decide? My voice rose. Why did he hide letters? Why did he forge replies in my name? Forge? Diane blinked, but there was something rehearsed in her surprise. I ran up the stairs and came back with Claire's notebook. I threw it on top of one of the boxes. Your handwriting, I said to Claire. Your words, years of entries about how you and your father decided what information I could handle, about how you planned to get rid of the evidence when he died. Claire paled. Diane looked at the notebook as if it were a snake. I was 19 when I wrote that, Claire said weakly. I was young, confused, Dad was very convincing. You're 35 now, I replied. When exactly were you going to stop being confused? This isn't fair, Diane raised her voice. You're making us look like monsters when we were just trying to do the right thing. The right thing, I repeated. For whom? For you, Diane yelled, and for the first time I saw cracks in her composure. You were fragile, Mum. You always were. Dad said stress made you sick, that you couldn't handle conflict, that if your family came back into your life, they would destroy you again. I wasn't fragile, I said slowly, feeling each word like a heavy weight on my tongue. I was isolated. There's a difference. Claire ran a hand through her hair, a gesture of frustration she had inherited from Bernard. Mum, understand. We grew up watching Dad take care of you, making sure you were okay, that you didn't get stressed. That's what we learned love meant. That's not love, I said. That's control. And what did you want us to do? Diane asked. Her voice now sounded tired, almost bored. Tell you everything when we were 10 and 13. Betray Dad. I would want that when you were 20, 25, 30. When you were adults with your own lives, you would have told me the truth. And what would have changed? Claire looked at me directly. Dad had already been doing it for 15, 20 years. The damage was done. You would have only suffered more. That wasn't your decision to make, I said, feeling tears of rage burn my eyes. It was my life, my family, my right to suffer or not suffer. We need to focus on the present. Claire switched tactics, returning to her professional mode. These boxes, this space, this is all in the past. Dad is dead. We can't change it, but we can move forward, finish the remodel, sell the house, help you start a new chapter. A new chapter, I looked at them both. Controlled by you instead of your father? Don't be dramatic, Diane sighed. We're just trying to help you. We always have. No, I said firmly. You have always managed me, just like your father managed me, as if I were a problem that needed to be administered instead of a person. Mum, please. Claire took a step toward me. I know you're upset. You have a right to be. But don't destroy our relationship over something Dad did decades ago. He didn't do it alone, I said. You were accomplices. Silence fell again. Claire and Diane looked at each other. A silent conversation I had witnessed 1,000 times, that secret language they shared and from which I was always excluded. Finally, Claire spoke, and her voice had changed. It was no longer soft or professional. It was cold. What do you want, Mum? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. We're sorry. Dad made questionable decisions, and we didn't tell you about them. Happy now? Can we move on? No, I said simply. No what? Diane asked, irritation seeping into her tone. No, you can't move on. Not here, not with me. Claire let out a disbelieving laugh. What is that supposed to mean? It means I need you to leave, both of you now. Mum, this is our family home, Diane said. You can't just kick us out. This is my house, I corrected. It's in my name, always has been, and I'm asking you to leave. Diane took a step forward, her eyes flashing. You know what? Fine. Go wallow in your self-pity. But when you finally decide to grow up and accept that life isn't perfect, that families make mistakes, we'll be waiting for you to call us. She turned and stomped up the stairs. Claire stayed a moment longer. You're going to regret this, she said quietly. We're all you have. No, I replied, thinking of Patricia's letters, of the nephews I never met, of the family that never stopped looking for me. You're not anymore. Claire went up the stairs without another word. I heard the front door open and slam shut. Marcus appeared in the basement doorway, tool in hand, having clearly witnessed everything. "Are you okay?" he asked. I sat on the cold concrete floor, surrounded by 30 years of lies packed in cardboard boxes. "No," I said honestly, "but I'm going to be." I spent that night in the basement, surrounded by the boxes. Marcus had left at 6, not before asking me 3 times if I would be all right alone. I assured him I would, though I wasn't entirely sure it was true. I searched through the last box, the one I hadn't fully checked yet. At the bottom, under more letters and documents, I found something wrapped in yellowed tissue paper. I unwrapped it carefully. It was a photo album. The first few pages showed a family I barely recognized. There I was, maybe 25 years old, laughing alongside Patricia at what looked like a picnic. My mother was in the photo too, younger, with darker hair. We all looked happy. I didn't remember that day, or maybe I had buried it so deep it ceased to exist in my memory. I kept turning pages, Christmases, birthdays, casual get-togethers. In every photo, I looked alive in a way I hadn't seen in the mirror for decades. I was smiling with my eyes, not just my mouth. My body was relaxed, not tense. The last photo in the album stopped me cold. It was from my wedding to Bernard, but it wasn't one of the official photos. This one was candid, taken sometime during the reception. Patricia was beside me, whispering something in my ear. I was laughing. But in the background of the image, barely visible, was Bernard, looking at me. And the expression on his face wasn't love or happiness. It was possession. I closed the album, feeling nauseous. The next morning, on only 3 hours of sleep, I did something I hadn't done in 32 years. I looked for Patricia's number. It wasn't hard. A simple internet search. Patricia Hartley, still living in Bend, Oregon, a 3-hour drive from Portland. Married to someone named Robert. 2 adult children, Matthew and Sophie. My nephews. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that grew cold in my hands as I stared at the number on my phone screen. What do you say to a sister you haven't seen in 30 years? A sister who probably hates you for ignoring her through her illness? Your mother's funeral? The birth of her children? I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. The phone rang 3 times. 4. I was about to hang up when a voice answered. "Hello?" It was her voice, hoarser than I remembered, aged by 3 decades, but unmistakably Patricia. "Patricia," I said, and my voice broke on her name. "It's Ophelia." Absolute silence on the other end. So long I thought she had hung up. "Ophelia," she finally repeated, and there was something strange in her tone. Not anger. Confusion. "My Ophelia?" "Yes." Another silence. Then, in a careful, almost fearful voice, "Why are you calling me after all these years?" There was no gentle way to say it. "Because I never got your letters." "What?" "I never got any of your letters. None of Mum's letters. Nothing. Bernard hid them all. I found them a few days ago during a remodel." The words came out in a rush. "Patricia, I didn't know. I didn't know Mum had cancer. I didn't know about Matthew and Sophie. I didn't know Dad died. I never knew anything because Bernard hid everything, and I just found out, and I—" "Wait," Patricia interrupted me. "Wait. Wait. Are you saying you never received any of my letters? In 30 years?" "None. I have them here. Boxes full of unopened mail or mail he never gave me." I heard a sound on the other end, as if Patricia had dropped something. Oh my God, Ophelia, I thought, we all thought you just didn't care about us, that you had chosen Bernard over us. I never chose that. Tears were streaming down my face now. I would have never chosen that. Mum died thinking you hated her, Patricia said, her voice trembling. It broke her heart. She kept waiting until the very end for you to call. I know. I read her letters. All of them. Another long silence. Then Patricia asked, Where is Bernard now? He died 6 months ago. And your daughters? Claire and Diane? They knew, I said simply. They knew what Bernard was doing and never told me. Patricia let out a slow breath. Ophelia, I need time to process this. It's a lot. After 30 years of thinking my sister abandoned me, to now find out that… I understand, I said quickly. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know the truth. Can I call you tomorrow? Patricia asked. I need to talk to Robert. I need to think. Of course. Ophelia, she said just before hanging up. If this is true, if you really never got my letters, then there is a lot we need to talk about. Patricia didn't wait until the next day. She called me that same night at 9. I need to see you, she said without preamble. In person. Tomorrow. I can drive to Bend, I offered. No, I'm coming to you. Give me your address. I gave her the address of the house. I stayed up all night, cleaning, organizing, not knowing what else to do with the anxiety eating away at me. At 8 in the morning, Marcus arrived and found me rearranging the basement boxes for the 10th time. Mrs. Brennan, he said gently, your sister is coming to see you, not the boxes. He was right, of course. Patricia arrived at exactly noon. I saw her from the window getting out of a silver Honda Civic. She was still thin, but her hair was now completely grey, cut in a practical bob. She wore jeans and a denim jacket. I opened the door before she could knock. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. I saw my own green eyes looking back at me, the same nose we shared with our mother, the same shape of the mouth. Oh my God, Patricia whispered. It really is you. It really is me. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were hugging on the porch, both of us crying, clinging to each other as if we feared the other would disappear if we let go. 30 years, Patricia sobbed against my shoulder. I lost you for 30 years. I'm sorry, I kept repeating. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, Patricia said, pulling back to look at my face. None of this was your fault. I brought her inside. I showed her the boxes. I showed her the notes on the basement wall. I showed her Claire's notebook. Patricia read in silence, her expression changing from shock to horror to something like fury. Your daughters knew, she finally asked. For years, apparently. Patricia put down the notebook. Ophelia, I need you to understand something. When Mum died, I was so angry with you, so deeply hurt. I had tried for years to bring you back into our lives, and you just wouldn't respond. At the funeral, you didn't even look at me. Because I thought you were angry with me, I said. Bernard told me the family blamed me for not being there during Mom's illness, that it was better to keep my distance. He completely isolated you from us. Patricia shook her head. And he did it so well that none of us realized what was really happening. We thought it was you choosing to walk away, when in reality, I never walked away. I never knew I was needed back. Patricia wiped her eyes. Matthew is 32 now. Sophie is 28. They're married, have their own lives. They never met their Aunt Ophelia. Can I meet them now? I asked, my voice small. Or is it too late? Patricia took my hands. It's never too late for real family, Ophelia, the family that chooses to be present. We spent the rest of the day talking. Patricia told me about the 30 years I had lost, about Matthew becoming a teacher, about Sophie working as a nurse, about her husband Robert, who had wanted to look for me years ago, but Patricia refused, too hurt by the perceived rejection. I told her about my life with Bernard. As I spoke, things I had normalized for years sounded different out loud. The way Bernard always insisted on checking the mail first, how he discouraged my friendships, how he convinced me I was too sensitive, too fragile, that I needed him to filter the world for me. It was abuse, Patricia said finally. Ophelia, what you're describing is systematic emotional abuse. The word hit me, abuse. I had thought of control, manipulation, but abuse was different. Abuse was something that happened to other people, not me. Except it had happened to me for 35 years. What are you going to do now? Patricia asked as the sun began to set. I don't know, I admitted. Claire and Diane want me to finish the remodel and sell the house, to move on as if none of this matters. What do you want? No one had asked me that question in decades. I want to get back the years I lost, I said slowly. I want to meet my nephews. I want a relationship with you. I want to stop being the person Bernard created and find out who I really am. Patricia smiled, and it was like watching the sun rise after an endless storm. Then that's exactly what you'll do. Patricia stayed that night. We slept little, talking until 4 in the morning like we used to when we were girls. She told me about her life, the small details that build an existence. How Robert had supported her when Mum was sick. How Matthew had inherited Mum's love for gardening. How Sophie had my same sarcastic sense of humour that Patricia remembered from our youth. She's going to love you, Patricia said, with a tired smile, as we drank coffee in the kitchen as the sun began to rise. Sophie always asked about you when she was little. I used to tell her stories about how we used to be inseparable. And what did you tell her about why I wasn't around? Patricia looked at her cup. I told her that sometimes people grow apart, that adults make mistakes. I tried not to make you look bad, even though I was hurt, because despite everything, you were still my sister. Those words broke me in a new way. 3 days later, Patricia organized a dinner. Small, just her, Robert, Matthew, and Sophie. No pressure, she assured me on the phone. Just family. Panic hit me so hard the morning of the dinner that I almost called to cancel. I hadn't seen these children, now adults in their entire lives. What right did I have to show up now claiming to be their aunt? Marcus, who was still coming daily to work on the house, found me sitting on the porch steps at 3 in the afternoon, unable to move. Are you going? He asked, sitting beside me uninvited. I don't know if I can. Mrs. Brennan, he said after a moment. I've worked in a lot of houses, seen a lot of things, but I've never seen anything like what your husband did. And I've also never seen someone get a second chance like the one you're getting now. What if they hate me? What if Patricia changed her mind and they don't really want me there? Then it will be painful, Marcus said simply, but not more painful than staying here, in this house full of lies, forever wondering what would have happened if you had tried. He was right. I arrived at Patricia's house in Bend at exactly 6, carrying a bottle of wine I had bought and exchanged 3 times at the store. The house was cozy, a single story, with a front garden full of flowers that someone clearly tended with love. Robert opened the door. He was a big man, with a grey beard and kind eyes. "Ophelia," he said, and his voice was warm. "Patricia has talked so much about you this week. I feel like I already know you." He let me in. The house smelled of lasagna and garlic bread. There were pictures on the walls, decades of family life that I had missed. Patricia came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "You came," she said, and I saw the relief on her face. "I was afraid you wouldn't." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But you came. That's what matters." Matthew arrived first, with his wife Eleanor. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with our family's dark hair. When he saw me, he stopped short. "Aunt Ophelia," he said, and the word pierced me. "Mum told me what happened, about the letters." "I'm so sorry," I said automatically. "You have nothing to be sorry for," he replied, moving in for an awkward but genuine hug. "The one who should be sorry is dead." Sophie arrived 20 minutes later, apologizing for being late. "My shift at the hospital ran long," she explained, taking off her jacket. She was smaller than Matthew, with my same slender build and the green eyes Patricia and I shared. She looked at me for a long moment, studying me. Then she said, "You have the same eyes as me. Mum always said I inherited Aunt Ophelia's eyes." "And you have your grandmother's smile," I replied without thinking. Sophie blinked in surprise. "You remember her?" "Every day." The dinner was strange at first, awkward in the way family gatherings with blood-related strangers are. But slowly, as Patricia told stories from our childhood, Matthew shared anecdotes about his students, and Sophie described her impossible days in the emergency room, something began to shift. I started to relax, to laugh, to contribute my own stories, stories I hadn't thought about in years, about Patricia and me stealing cookies from Mom's kitchen, about how we used to build forts with sheets in the living room. "I can't believe we lost 30 years of this," Sophie said at some point in the evening, her voice soft but firm. 30 years of knowing you, because of one selfish man." "Not just him," I said, because I needed to be honest. "My daughters also knew, and they chose to keep the secret." Matthew exchanged a look with Sophie. "Mum told us about them. Are they still in contact with you?" "They call," I said. "Constantly, but I don't answer." "Why not?" asked Eleanor, Matthew's wife, who had been quiet for most of the dinner. "Because I don't know what to say to them. Because every time I think about talking to them, I remember they spent years knowing the truth and chose to lie to me." "That's betrayal," Sophie said directly. "Not family betrayal, but basic human betrayal." Patricia touched my hand across the table. "Ophelia, you don't have to make decisions about Claire and Diane today, or tomorrow, or next month. You're allowed to take time to heal." Robert raised his wine glass. "A toast," he said, "to second chances, to family that chooses to love you right, and to Ophelia, who had the courage to step out of the shadows." We all raised our glasses, and for the first time in 35 years, I felt like I was part of something real. After dinner, Sophie asked me to walk outside with her. The night air was cool, smelling of pine. "I want to show you something," she said, taking out her phone. She showed me a photo. "This is my daughter, Emma, your great-niece. She's 3. I looked at the picture of a little girl with wild curls and the family's green eyes. "She's beautiful." "You're going to meet her," Sophie said firmly. "She's going to have a great aunt in her life. She's going to grow up knowing that family doesn't abandon you." Tears burned my eyes. "I don't know how to do this, how to be part of a family again." "Nobody knows," Sophie replied. "You just show up." Once, and then again, and you keep showing up until it becomes natural. That night, driving back to Portland, my phone rang. Claire. I let it go to voicemail, then Diane, then Claire again. Eventually, I listened to the messages. Claire first. Mom, this is ridiculous. It's been 2 weeks. We need to finish the remodel. The buyer is losing interest. When are you going to stop punishing us for something Dad did? Diane next. I talked to Claire. This is getting out of hand. We are your family. We're all you have. You can't just cut us out of your life because you're upset about something that happened years ago. Grow up, Mum. And finally Claire again, this time with a different, more desperate tone. Mum, I saw your car in Bend on Sunday. Did you go see Aunt Patricia? Are you really going to choose her over us, after everything we've done for you? I deleted the messages without replying. 3 days later, Patricia called me. Matthew and Sophie want you to come for dinner again this weekend. Sophie is bringing Emma. And Ophelia, they want it to be a regular thing, every couple of weeks, family dinners. If you want, of course. I want to, I said, feeling something warm expand in my chest. I really want to. Good, because I do too. I lost you once, sister. I'm not going to lose you again. The remodel on the house continued. Marcus worked consistently, respecting my space but always present. One day while he was taking a break, I asked him why he had been so kind to me, why he had taken the time to warn me, to help me. He took off his work gloves, thinking. My mother was in a marriage like yours, he said finally. Different in the details, but the same in essence. She never got the chance you have now. He died, and she was left alone, with no family, no friend, no idea who she was without him. He paused. When I saw those boxes, when I saw those marks on the wall, I knew you needed the chance my mother never had. How is she now, your mother? She died 5 years ago, alone, still believing no one had ever loved her. I put my hand on his. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry for her. Do something with your second chance. Live it for both of them. That night, I finally responded to a message from Claire. I kept it simple. I'm not going to sell the house yet. I need time. Please respect that. The reply came in seconds. How much time? This isn't fair to us, Mum. We have lives too. I didn't answer. Diane sent a message an hour later. If you're not going to sell, at least finish the remodel. It's affecting the value. Or give us permission to manage the project ourselves. I didn't reply to that one either. Instead, I sent a message to Patricia. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when you thought I had given up on you. Her reply was immediate. Sisters don't give up on each other. They just get lost for a while sometimes, but they always find their way back home. The decision came one November morning, 4 months after Marcus found the boxes. I woke up in my house, the house I had shared with Bernard for 35 years, and I just knew. I couldn't stay here. It wasn't about revenge or running away. It was that every wall, every room, every corner of this place was soaked in deception. The basement where Bernard had built his archive of control, the kitchen where I had prepared thousands of meals without knowing my family was looking for me, the bedroom where I had slept next to a man who had systematically stolen my life. I called a real estate agent that same day. I want to sell, I said when she answered. Quickly. I don't care about getting the top price. I just want it off my hands. The agent, a woman named Sharon with a professional and efficient voice, paused. Mrs. Brennan, the market is good right now. If you wait a few more weeks, We could get at least $30,000 more. I don't want to wait. Understood. When can I stop by to see it? Marcus was working upstairs when Sharon arrived that afternoon. I heard her walking through the house, making notes, taking pictures. When she came downstairs, her expression was calculating. With the remodel partially complete, I'd say we can list it at $450,000. Maybe $460 if we finish the basement. I'm not finishing the basement, I said firmly. Leave it as it is. Someone else can decide what to do with that space. Sharon looked at me curiously but didn't ask. Very well. I can have the paperwork ready for you by tomorrow. That night, Claire finally showed up in person. She didn't call first. She just knocked on the door at 8 o'clock. When I opened it, her face was tense, tired. We need to talk, she said without a greeting. I let her in. We sat in the living room, the same place where Bernard used to sit in his recliner, controlling the remote, the conversations, everything. Sharon Michaels called me, Claire said bluntly. She says you hired a real estate agent that you're selling. It's my house. I can sell it. Without consulting us. Claire's voice rose slightly. Mom, Diane and I have been waiting patiently for you to finish processing all of this. We thought you needed space, but this is going too far. Waiting patiently, I repeated. Is that what you think you're doing? Yes, Claire said with exasperation. We understand you're upset. Dad did questionable things, but you are destroying this family over something you can't change. I'm not destroying anything, I said calmly. It was already destroyed. I'm just finally seeing the rubble. Claire rubbed her temples. What do you want from us, Mum? What do we have to do to make this end? The question stopped me. I studied her, this daughter I had raised, whom I had fed and cared for and loved. I saw Bernard in her jaw, in the way her eyes hardened when she didn't get what she wanted. I want you to tell me the truth, I said finally. I want to know why, not why your father did it. I understand that now. He was a controlling man who couldn't stand me having connections outside of him. But I want to know why you, my daughters, chose to protect his secrets instead of protecting me. Claire looked away. It wasn't that simple. Then make it simple for me. Explain it. Silence, long, heavy, full of unsaid things. Finally, Claire spoke, and her voice was different, lower, almost vulnerable. Because he was stronger than you. The words hit me physically. Dad was always the strong one, Claire continued, still not looking at me. He made decisions, he fixed things, he knew what to do. And you, Mum, you were always soft, always needing protection, always overwhelmed or tired or sad. Dad told us we had to take care of you, protect you, that you were fragile. I wasn't fragile, I said. I was isolated, I was controlled. There was a difference. I know that now, Claire said, finally looking at me. But when I was 12, 14, 17, I didn't know that. I just knew that Dad seemed to have everything under control, and you always seemed on the verge of falling apart. And when you were 25, 30, 35, Claire closed her eyes. By then it was too late. The pattern was set. And honestly, Mum, it was easier to keep things as they were than to face what it all really meant. Easier for whom? For all of us. We sat in silence. Outside, I heard a car pass, someone living their normal life while mine was being reconfigured piece by piece. Do you know what I've learned these last few months? I said finally. That I wasn't fragile. I never was. I was resilient. I survived 35 years of systematic manipulation and still found the strength to rebuild when I found out the truth. That isn't fragility, Claire. That's strength. Claire didn't answer. I'm going to sell this house, I continued, and I'm going to move, probably to Bend, near Patricia. I'm going to meet my nephews, my great niece. I'm going to get back the time I lost. And us? Claire asked, her voice barely a whisper. Where do we fit into your new life? It was a fair question, one I had been avoiding. I don't know, I answered honestly. I don't know if there's a place for you yet. Not because I don't love you, but because I don't trust you, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Claire stood up. So I guess this is your final decision. I guess so. She walked to the door. Then she stopped, her hand on the knob. Sophie and Matthew aren't better than us, you know. They just got lucky they weren't in the middle of all this. You're right, I said. They were lucky. They were lucky to grow up with a mother who didn't lie to them, with a grandmother who wasn't kept from them, with a family that chose honesty over control. Claire left without another word. Diane came 2 days later. Her approach was different, more aggressive. This is ridiculous, she said as soon as she walked in. You are throwing your life away over something that happened decades ago. Dad is dead. He can't hurt you anymore. You're right, I said. He can't, but you can, and you did. Every day you kept his secret. You hurt me again. We were kids when this started. But you weren't kids at 20, at 25, at 30. Diane crossed her arms. Fine. If you want to punish us, punish us. But don't pretend that Aunt Patricia and her kids are a better family than we are. You don't know them. They haven't been there for you. Because they weren't allowed to be, I said. That's the difference, Diane. They tried. For 30 years they tried. You had the chance to do the right thing every single day for years, and you chose not to. So what? You just cut us off. After everything. I'm not cutting you off, I said. I'm setting boundaries. Something I never learnt to do because your father made sure I didn't. Diane stared at me for a long moment. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said. But it will be my regret, my choice, and that's more than I've had in 35 years. The house sold in 3 weeks. A young couple with 2 small children. The woman was excited about the basement space. We can turn it into a playroom, she said enthusiastically during the final walkthrough. It's all yours, I said. Do whatever you want with it. Marcus finished his work the same day I closed the sale. We stood on the empty porch. The house behind us was no longer mine. What are you going to do now? He asked. Start over, I said. At 63. That's the best age to start, he smiled. You already know what you don't want. That's half the battle. I thanked him, inadequately, because how do you thank someone for giving you your life back? I moved to Bend 2 weeks later. A small 2-bedroom apartment, 10 minutes from Patricia's house. It wasn't big, it wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Patricia helped me unpack. Sophie brought Emma, who immediately decided I was her new favorite person. Matthew and Eleanor came over with pizza for dinner. Welcome home, Patricia said, as we toasted with cheap beer in plastic cups because I hadn't unpacked the real glasses yet. Home, I repeated. And for the first time in decades, the word meant something real. Claire and Diane called occasionally during the first few months. The messages were varied, some angry, some manipulative, some that almost sounded genuine. I didn't answer most of them. When I did, I kept things brief, neutral. 6 months after I moved, I received a letter, handwritten from Claire. Mum, I've been going to therapy. My therapist says Dad taught us unhealthy patterns about love and control. She says what we did was wrong, regardless of our age or what Dad told us. I don't expect you to forgive me,